Midnight Echo, where real thoughts hit different after dark. Late night conversations, real talk. It's your host, DJ Dex Double X, and if you up right now, you already know what time it is. Let's echo in. What's good to my early birds and what's good to my night owls? It's the night owl himself, DJ Dex Double X, and I want to welcome you to What's Good Fam, the Midnight Echo, Season 2, Episode 2, titled Digital Drama. So before we get into tonight's episode, I just want to take a moment to show some love. Shout out to everybody, and I mean everybody that's been tuning in, liking the posts, sharing the clips, leaving comments. I see y'all. I appreciate that for real. Like from the bottom of my heart, I really do. And also quick shout out to anybody celebrating a birthday. Shout out to my May babies. I see it's officially Taurus season. So, shout out to my Tauruses. Boo, I'm a Cancer, you know what I'm saying? But, shout out to everybody celebrating birthdays. In fact, I want to shout out some birthdays from people I know personally. Shout out to my man, Low Boogie, one half of Rule Content. His birthday is today. But also shout out to my little broski Dragno. He's also celebrating his birthday with his twin, Kenny Pimp. I ain't gonna say their real names, but shout out to everybody celebrating birthdays to man. I just want to say much love, stay safe, and I hope you enjoy it. Now you know what we normally do at the beginning of the episode. I want to tap in real quick on some music, new drops, some lifestyle, some not, but all worth checking out. So first up, my man, Mr. Money, the Mussolini, Power of the P. He said this is his fourth project this year, and he's been consistent. And I'm not even gonna lie to you. This album right here, Power of the P, straight bars, nothing but bars. That real New York flow, smooth delivery. He's in his lane right now. I feel like he can go far with this. So hey, shout out to Mussolini, man. Keep doing your thing. Next up, we got my man, Big Crit. Dropped a track called Sunset Vibe. Real laid back feel. Something that you can ride at night type of music. Be in the corners. Shout out to my Cadillac riders. He did drop a project before. I want to say back December the 5th, 2005. Dedicated to Cataly Baritz. My bad if I pronounced that wrong. So shout out to Big Crit. He does have a concert coming up on my birthday, and I definitely will be in attendance to check this man out, man. So shout out to Big Crit. And of course, we got Currency and Wiz Khalifa. Went ahead and dropped that part 2 of that Ruthless Records for Drop Top, produced entirely by Harry Fraud. Smooth, laid back, definitely gives that lifestyle vibe. Like you've made it, you on top of the world right now. Of course, it also gives me the same vibes of the Spiral Stairwell that Currency and Larry June did. And no disrespect to both of these producers, The Alchemist and Harry Fraud. Very, very much talented producers in their own lanes, respectfully. And I'm not comparing, but I just want to say shout out to those two producers, man. So really good music for everybody that's big fans of Currency and Wiz Khalifa. All right. But also shout out my man Ellie Dollar. That growth and development. Now I know last episode I talked about it. I said I was gonna listen to it. Finally got a chance to. And right now, this is just straight grind talk. Consistency, staying focused. It gave me some, 420 vibes, but in all, it was a real message in that one. So, shout out to Ellie Dollar. Of course, one of the most consistent rappers. Like I said, this might be tape number 14 if I'm not mistaken. So. Then you got Nug Life, Beat Dispensary Part 4. Definitely a chill, laid back type project, especially for my 420 smokers. If you just kicking back, that's the vibe right there. I love the production. All the beats were on point, even the bars. Gotta give it to them fellas, man. Now, this was one I was not expecting. Don Tripp and Eddie Valero. And this track is called W8. Real Memphis sound, real solid. Don Tripp been doing his thing. Eddie Valero, he's coming up strong too, man. Real underground, but he really got bars himself. Love his production. Keep doing your thing, fellas. Want to say that's one solid song right there. So, shout out to my Don Tripp and Eddie Valero fans. And of course, we got Boldy James. Man, listen, he's been working heavy too. He didn't drop so many projects this year. So far, I've just recently landed on Hook, Line, and Sinker. And so far, I'm about 4 or 5 songs deep. It's sounding real, real promising. Like, I like his bars. He's always been on top of his game when it comes down to the bar game. So shout out to him. But he also dropped a lot of other projects too. Manhunt and Salvation for the Weekend. I'm gonna get to those albums just as soon as I'm done with Hook, Line, Sinker. So shout out to Boldy James. Shout out to those that like listening to Boldy James. And we got Jay Worthy, Once Upon a Time, the soundtrack. I'm gonna tap into that once I'm done with all the Boldy James. So I'm gonna get back to y'all. But hey, shout out to my Jay Worthy fans. If y'all got some tracks that you think I should listen to, like I said, echo in. I love listening to new music. Probably add that to the Midnight Cruise volume series. All right. So, but yeah, that's a lot of music in rotation right now. A late night stay focused type vibe. Speaking of energy and what we take in, let's get into tonight's topic. And I call this the Midnight Thought. So, I've been watching how people react to situations lately. And it feels like everybody is digitally crashing out. Not because it's their situation, but because they feel like it is. And one question that always seems to come to my mind is, why are people so vested? It's like you see something, right? Breakup, a situation unfolding online, which I don't know for the life of why people feel like they should run to social media and just put all their business out there. But hey, neither here nor there. But it's always something involving people you don't even know personally, and somehow it turns into a whole war in the comments. People picking sides, going back and forth, arguing like they personally involved. It's like, how are you crashing out over something that that doesn't even belong to you? Like, it's just been a very wild month. April kind of ended in a wild way, and one thing I've always been paying attention to is, of course, what's been going on both sides. Like, to go into the comments, some of these stories I already know it's going to trigger something. It's always going to trigger something, some type of wild reaction, especially if it involves us within the African American community. It's always some type of drama. And this recent one, though very sad, with Miss Ashley Janae and this Joe McCann situation, and before I go any further, I just want to say, quick condolences to the family. And, I hope justice is served, because, that story itself does sound a little bit, but of course I wasn't there, so I'm not going to throw down my speculations. But like I said, prayers to the family. But even just seeing that and seeing how some of and hear me out, fellas, all right, before y'all go trying to call me a panda or something, but just seeing how some of the fellas just going on in the comments about how she may have deserved this, or how, because of some tweets that she has tweeted, and I'm not gonna lie, I read some of the tweets and I was kind of, a little confused myself. But like I said before, I don't know this person's life, so I wasn't even gonna judge. Like, if that's how you feel, that's just how you feel, and it ain't gonna affect me none, But I see it triggered a lot of guys, and some of the stuff I can understand was triggering, very triggering, and even seeing some of the things that she said about the late Kevin Samuels. And a quick shout out to the family of Kevin Samuels, may he rest in peace, and condolences as well. And I get there are a lot of women that do not like Kevin Samuels for the things he said. Seeing that some of the fellas kind of just jumped up in arms, was like, well, hey man, this is what she had coming, man. She said this about black men. She said this about how she felt about Kevin Samuels. A lot of disrespectful things. But one thing I can say, as a person that does like to show some type of compassion, the first thing in my mind wouldn't be to just condemn her for what she said or done, especially with her words. We get on social media every day and some people be saying the most disrespectful things, but just to condemn her for her words instead of saying, you know what, condolences to the family. I want to know what happened. We hope they get justice. And that's just all I was just wondering. Like, yo, fellas, we got to kind of like dial it back a little bit, you know? And I only say that because I know there was one that I commented on a post about Miss Ashley Janae. I commented on about 3 weeks ago. Apparently, there was some, I guess, rumor that maybe the guy found out that she was playing around in his face with another guy, and he kind of snapped and let her have it. And, you know, I just commented. I was like, even if she was playing around, it's not enough to murder if he did do it. And you know, there was somebody that came back and commented. You know, I won't say names or anything. And like, you know, shit, that you spend money and give your heart on a lying imposter female, it will be trouble with a laughing emoji. I was like, you know what? True, but I got billions, and she would have been replaced so fast. But not, I'm not jeopardizing my freedom for some, you know, some cat. You're like, yeah, you know what? You're right. Real talk. You know, a lot of people were just going up and down, and you know, it was a couple comments from women too, of course. You know, some were just agreeing with what I was saying, but at the same time saying, you know, some people do snap and go crazy, which I can agree with. There have been some instances of people doing that. But like I said, I don't know the situation. I don't know what happened. Once again, justice for her and justice for the family, you know, and just also going through and reading some of these comments about, you know, how a lot of, well, not a lot of women, but some women coming forward saying how they hate walking down the street and see men staring at them. And, you know, just from there, it didn't stop. And it just kept escalating, you know. And it's funny because I would see some of these comments and seeing how people were using this to make decisions in their own lives. Like now they're trying to say they won't date a certain type of man and so on and so forth. And, you know, they're basing it off of what they saw happen to somebody else. And I get it. That is a very scary situation. It is. I just say sometimes you just have to do your due diligence and know who you're dating and who you're dealing with before jumping into a serious anything with this person. Now, with me saying that, I would be remiss if I did not take aim at the ladies for a minute, because, of course, this infamous situation with Meg Thee Stallion and Klay Thompson happening. This is really, once again, started some things that I should have known was going to happen, but, you know, I don't try to stay too much into what's going on with celebrities and their gossip because I have other things to, you know, worry about. I like to read about it and just carry on about my day because it's like, this has no effect on me. But obviously this relationship has had an effect on a lot of people, especially the ladies. You know, and one thing I can honestly say, right, is watching some of you digitally crash out in these comments and some of the things that you feel like would be get back for Klay Thompson is beyond diabolical. Like some of the stuff I heard. Yo, some of it was kind of funny because there was a lot of you willing to ruin your own situation over a situation that's not even yours, you know? Like a post I seen posted by some woman saying, attention all hot girls, we will all be cheating on our men tonight for Meg. Even when you lead a man to water, he still won't drink. Cheat first. And that comment really just blew my brain because it just goes back to what I was saying before. People investing so much time and energy into these relationships, and of course it having a divide, both sides pointing fingers, both sides accusing of the other side of playing games, cheating, lying, manipulation. It's always the same. And, you know, unfortunately in this relationship there was some fingers pointed, accusations of cheating. And I'm just saying all this because we don't know what happened in this relationship. We don't know who's telling the truth. We don't know who's telling a lie. I'm just like, why do we care about it so much? You know, why are we so vested? Because you just look at it and you just see so many people reacting really emotionally. Like this situation just really triggered them and hurted them so much. Like how? You know, just ready to move off impulses. Like per se, even though that post might have been just some rage bait, how we know there aren't going to be some women who are actually going to do that in honor of getting revenge for Meg, even though you have to really sit down and think, how is that going to help now? And then you got others just laughing, being cold, acting like none of it matters. It's like both sides are missing the same thing. And what I mean by saying what I'm saying is what they're missing is at the end of the day, whether it's a breakup or something deeper, somebody's still hurting. Within what has been happening, of course, the family of Miss Ashley Janae hurt, devastated. And depending on whatever side or whoever side started what, I know for Meg, if this really was a relationship where she was in love, that really hurt, if she had to find out that allegedly, Klay Thompson was messing around with somebody else, or reverse, if it was really Klay that found out Meg was messing with somebody else. They're still dealing with something that's real. And instead of being human about it, we just turning it into entertainment. Like, we're laughing at this, like this is the funniest thing in the world. Men saying that's what she gets because of, y'all know about the Tory Lanez case. And of course, women going in on Klay Thompson saying he's this and he's that, he fumbled the bag and all those other things. And, using certain things as justified reasons as to why this has happened to, a certain person is really wild, man. Now, one thing I can say that I did enjoy seeing in some of these posts that I was reading in the comments, we are, in a slick sense, starting to come back together. We're starting to somewhat come back to our senses. Seeing some of the women coming through and having, the same logic that a lot of us men would understand. Like, this situation has nothing to do with us. Why are y'all crashing out over the situation? Seeing men and women come together, just have a conversation instead of coming at each other, calling each other toxic, misandry, misogynistic, the list goes on. I love to see it, and I'm glad some people are starting to understand that, a lot of these situations don't deserve our reaction, nor do they deserve our energy. Because when it's all said and done, I think the problem is people are not just reacting to what they see. They're reacting from what they've been carrying. Past hurt, past experiences, past situations that never got dealt with. Some of you are still waiting for an apology that you may or may never get. And I get it, Some of us have been wronged. Some of us have been through some wild situations. Some of us have been scorned, scarred beyond belief, And all I can say is to those people is, not everything has to feel personal. Because when you move like that and you start making decisions based off of emotions, not logic, not clarity, just impulse, that's how you end up crashing out for real. Some of us have things that we're still dealing with. Some of us are seeking therapy for these types of things. At some point, you got to ask yourself, is this even mine to carry? Or why am I still carrying it? Even in certain situations, you have to ask yourself, is this even my situation to react to? Or am I just caught up in the moment? Because like I said in the first episode, not everything deserves your reaction. Not everything deserves your energy. And some things you just observe, learn from, and keep it moving, such as life. We just got to keep moving forward. Got to leave the past in the past. Just keep marching towards the future. But some of us are still living in the past. It don't matter which side I'm talking to, both men and women. Because, I want to be honest with both sides. These seem like rich nigga problems. I'm sorry, I just wanted to say that. But in all honesty, man, I just feel like it is coming to a point where we just really have to stop going online and crashing out in these comments and somewhat try to show more empathy for some of these situations, because a lot of us can go through these same situations and would expect the same. You gotta understand, at the end of the day, a lot of these celebrities are human beings just like the rest of us. Though their situations might be different from everybody else's due to our statuses, I understand they go through the same issues like we do. And we shouldn't be crashing out over their situations because, first of all, those are situations we had nothing to do with. that we weren't even involved with. Becoming attached to something that we have no part of. And all I'm saying is, you don't got to crash out in these comments or in real life, period, or for revenge for somebody that you don't even know. Just because everybody else is doing it, you don't got to lose yourself over something that was never yours to begin with. All right, let's really turn our energy and focus on things that are really happening around us and under our noses, especially when it involves the black community. What this, as I've seen right now, the Supreme Court is dismantling the Voting Rights Act. Like, that is major right there. That could really do a lot of damage to us as African Americans. And it's still the issue with these kids and these guns. Like, far more issues that we could really be focusing our time and attention on, rather than worrying about these celebrities and their relationships and how it somewhat affects us, even though it doesn't affect us. You know what I'm saying? So that's just my midnight thought of the night, man. I just want to say thank you for everyone who came through and listened to the episode. So in normal fashion, like I always do before I go, I always gotta drop the socials. All right, so you can find me on Instagram, What's Good Fam _podcast. That's What's Good Fam _podcast. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, as What's Good Fam Entertainment. What's Good Fam Entertainment. You can also find me on TikTok as What's Good Fam T.M.E or What's Good Fam 2021. You can also find me on Facebook, What's Good Fam podcast page. That's What's Good Fam podcast page. You can also find me on YouTube as What's Good Fam, The Midnight Echo. And you can find me on Threads. I don't know how many people use Threads, but you can also find me on Threads as well as What's Good Fam _podcast. Don't forget to check out the Midnight Cruise Volume 1. I am currently working on Volume 2 right now as we speak. I'm also trying to put together a Slow Jams 1 and 2. All right, so y'all just bear with me. All right, I'm trying to make that move to Apple Music, so like I said, just bear with me. I want to give a quick shout out to those that echo in with me. Don't forget, echo in with me, all right? When I post these clips, if you want to, leave a comment, we can have a conversation, shoot me a DM. If you want to echo in about the Midnight Cruise Volume series, let's talk, man. Let's add some great music to this and have a nice playlist going, all right? Like I said, echo in with your boy, all right? That's Midnight Echo, where thoughts don't sleep. If you felt this, you felt this. Stay solid, stay focused, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.